The new drumming thing that I've stumbled across is been influenced by African rhythms. And I found it in a lot of popular music. So this is where it's really captured my heart. I was influenced first by my parents that were into some African music and Caribbean music, Latin and Caribbean. And I listened to a lot of stuff, a lot of music on the radio and on records that has that African bass rhythm in it. This African influence has led me to meet up with Justine Gourga and Hervé, her brother, and fabulous people, and they've led me to be able to exercise some of this great African rhythm, and I'm working more and more on it all the time. But it's something I really love to do. It's really added a new kind of spice to my whole drumming career. Because I was just a rock and roll drummer. I was a country drummer for a long time. And I mean, it was so average. There was a lot of guys like that around. I had to do something different. So I think what I'm going to do is maybe demonstrate some of this, how they work, those rhythms work in popular music. Right. There's one rhythm that came through from the African influence that I really like. And I'm going to do 2 short songs here that it incorporates. And it goes like this. Got a smile on my face and I got 4 walls around me. Got the sun in the sky, all the water surround me. Oh, and I said, wait. It's just an ordinary day. It's all your state of mind. At the end of the day, you just got to say it's alright. Bo dilly, have you heard? Mom's gonna buy you a mockingbird. If that mockingbird don't sing, you a diamond ring. So you see how the African rhythms come through popular music like that, and that's what inspired me.
Where would you like to see your drumming go this summer? Like, what are you hoping to happen this year?
Well, this summer, I'd like to get back out and do the patio work that I was doing last summer, because it turned out to be really profitable, and I made some great contacts. I've refreshed the contacts. The patios were the ultimate location for conga and percussion music. People enjoyed it. Sitting in their cars, sitting at a picnic table by a chip stand. It just seemed to be the perfect setting. Last summer, I played a number of engagements at the Fork Chip Stand in Callander by the Wasi Center. Right. And they've called me back again this year. And they opened up the door for me, so it looks like I'm going to be doing a lot of dates at the Fork Chip Stand this summer. I've been in contact with Alfredo from Mr. Poncho's. He's opened up a second location in Northgate. Now, unfortunately, I'm not going to be going into Northgate, but Mr. Poncho on Algonquin and Fraser, yeah. He has a beautiful patio there, and he wants me back there again. I had some great patio shows there last year as well. Yeah, I did some Caribbean, Latin, reggae. I did a number of things there that really went over, and the patio setting was perfect for my percussion show.
Everybody knows you like that, right?
So we're gonna get into the Fishin Musician. Oh, for sure. I've got at least 4 or 5 different excursions planned for this spring into the summer to videotape some spring rainbow trout. I'm going to try some fly fishing for bass this year, because I got into some of that last year, but I didn't get to videotape a lot of it because of the COVID shutdown and where I was restricted to go. But this year, with things opening up, I think I'll be able to accomplish some of the stuff I wanted to do last year. The rainbow trout excursion I went on last year, I'm going on again this year, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
So
where did you go?
I went down the other side of Victoria Harbor, a place called the Sturgeon Creek down near Wabashine, Ontario.
Right.
And the steelhead rainbow trout come in off of Georgian Bay. Yeah. And there's a tributary boundary there that you're allowed to fish on that stream year round, and you're allowed to take 2 on a regular license, and it's a remarkable fishery of 5 to 7 pound rainbow trout. It's really, really something.
Wow.
Yeah, so go to Stephen J. Leroux at youtube.com, and you'll see some of this rainbow trout action there. There's a lot of different videos at the YouTube channel. Sure, let's go back in time. When I grew up, I was like 10 years old, and I got behind a drum kit and I started playing. And my first band in North Bay was called Four of a Kind, which we really were not four of a kind. I was the youngest member, of course, in that band, and we played around. Sammy Veltri, Robert Sawyer, Ed Steele, and myself, and we played around town a lot. We did the Fraser Tavern, and we did the Air Base, and a number of dates. From that, I got into more rock and roll, and a band I was in called Misconduct. Sue Ewing, Steve Gutowski, Ian Crawford, my brother Vince Leroux, and myself, 5 of us. We did a show at the Capitol Centre with Gatto from Toronto. Now, that was really interesting because Gatto was quite a big name at the time. They had their album out called Active Gatto, and we were out promoting that. That would have been 80 and 81.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And Capitol Centre is an amazing stage to play. I always love going back in there. Other bands I've been in locally in North Bay, I was with Legends. We did 2 years at the North Bay Legion on First Ave. Yeah. Played a number. I had another band called Misled, who we played around town. Valerie Chevrolet was the lead singer in that band. Fantastic band. We got to go to Sudbury and open up for the Good Brothers, and we had a few pretty decent shows. There's been a lot of bands around North Bay that I've sat in with. My last venture as a local rock band was called Anchor, and we had Danielle Roy as the lead vocalist, and she's just phenomenal. Nick Edwards on guitar, and my son Dan Perot playing bass. So we had a really nice lineup of musicians, and Danielle was such a treat to play with, a great singer. She's with Roadhouse now, of course. So there's been a number of bands around North Bay that I've worked with. Of course, I get calls quite often to go and do sit-ins when a drummer can't make it, and that's a lot of fun. I sat in with everybody from, I used to sit in with Vic Virgili and the Laurentian Valley Boys. I sat in with, a number of groups around town. Weekend Crew. I sat in with just about every other rock band in town. Fluid Drive. I sat in with quite a few of the bands that Dave DeMarco and Jake Thomas have had. I go and sit in with them quite often. I get called up in different situations because I play music. I'm not just a rock drummer. I play music, and being a music drummer really helped.
Your favorite band to be with?
I moved down to the Trenton area a number of years back in 2000. I moved into the Trenton area and joined a band called Rattlesnake.
Yeah.
And Rattlesnake was a really interesting group because it was actually 4 brothers that collaborated on this show after placing in the Q107 homegrown contest in Toronto under the name Alistair Crowley. They had to get out and work again, so they did a cover band thing called Rattlesnake. And they did a lot of clubs that were called rock and rodeos. And the rock and rodeo concept was you did a half a night of the band, go in, do a half a night of country, 2 sets of country, new age country, like Boots, Scoot and Boogie and Garth Brooks and all the new age country at that time in the 2000. And then the last half of the night, which was 2 sets of classic rock like Guns N' Roses, ZZ Top, Bob Seger. We would do some classic rock stuff at the time that was really big. So that was my favorite band to be in as far as material goes and enjoy playing. I really enjoyed the classic rock and southern rock that I got to play with Rattlesnake. The Miller brothers, Jamie, Jody, and Tony, that were remaining, were the remaining brothers. Their brother Darren was the drummer before I went in, and he had a bad accident and he slipped a disc in his back and he could not play anymore. which was really unfortunate. And I liked the guys. They were a great band. I knew who they were beforehand, and they called me up, and no rehearsal, I went and played with them because I knew the material right off my top of my head. It was a no-brainer. Excellent band, Rattlesnake. Oh yeah.
And locally, you've been into all the bars here. Which ones had the best sort of setup, acoustics, best bar for a bar band in
bar situation? Yeah. Well, I'm gonna narrow it down to two. Of course, the Voyager had a really nice setup for the longest time, and they had a great run of for the longest time of cover bands coming in, even bands coming in that did feature acts. Of course, with the Rib Fest and all their other activities, they did entertainment on there. It was a great place to play for any musician. Solo or in a band. Second to that, I always enjoyed going into the Fraser Tavern, and because they had an in-house PA system, and again, it was kind of like an anything goes night where you could play country or rock or blues or jazz or metal. It didn't matter. You did it. If you did it well, the people there loved it. And a lot of my high school buddies ended up in the Fraser, so that's my connection to it.
So that's your hometown bar.
Yeah, it's the hometown bar. Exactly. Worst place. The worst place to play in North Bay?
Yeah.
A lot of people would say, oh, it was the Parkview or it was somewhere else. But no, I enjoyed those other bars that weren't maybe not as popular. The worst place to play in North Bay had to be up at the Blue Spruce, because when the weather was bad, you had to go up there and then pack up, and they always made you take your equipment out at night. Yeah. And in the middle of the night, we'd be traveling back on the Highway 11 North, and there's a snowstorm or something. It was just a ridiculously bad situation to play. And for some reason, the stage at the Blue Spruce, the mosquitoes got in there so bad at night in the spring or the summer that it was horrendous having to play there. The owners and the bar situation was good. They paid well, but it was just bad playing there and hard to play there. Rooms were really bad, but mosquitoes were the worst. Hard to play drums while you're trying to scratch. It's wild that you talk about the Chief. I had some amazing nights on the Chief.
Oh yeah.
And one I want to share with you, and I'm sure you can relate to this. I was with Sab and the Family Band. Yeah. Our good friend Sab, bless his heart. Too bad he's gone. Oh, rest in peace, Sab. I walked into Billy Bob's Bait one time to get some bait, and Billy Bob says to me, "You want to do some good gigs? I know you're a drummer." He says, "Get with Sab. Sab will get you doing some great gigs." So I thought about it. So I approached Sab. I said, "Hey, Sab, what can I do for you? You know, I know you got a drummer, but maybe there's something I can do." So he said to me, he says, "Play congas for me. I want you to play congas. We're going to do a Latin show." I went, "Oh, great. Caribbean blues. I love it. Let's go." So I ended up on the Chief Commanda with Downchild Blues Band, Chuck Jackson, Pat Carey, and Michael Fonfara on the Chief Commanda doing a Caribbean version of Flip, Flop, and Fly. I mean, it was the most amazing thing in the world. That was so cool. So the Chief Commanda has a lot of memories for me. What do they say? It's hard work if you can get it.
Yeah.
Sure. I love the Chief Commanda, though. I loved it. I really did. In the 70s story?
Yeah.
Okay, let's bounce back to the 70s. I was out on the road with a fellow by the name of Frank Starr, who came out of Temiskaming, Ontario. Temiskaming, Quebec. I'll get it right. And we had a fellow by the name of Steve Doucette on guitar. Mm-hmm. We had a fellow by the name of Gary Beauvais on bass, and myself on drums. We were a four-piece, and we did a country, basically a very down-home country type show, all covers, no originals. And we went between here and say as far west as Espanola, Manitoulin Island area, and did the Sudbury area. And that band with Frank Starr was called Spiral. And it was definitely a spiral experience, boy. But we did some great music and traveled to some really good places. And, it was one of the starting points for my Fishin Musician title, where I was in the bar playing at night, but during the day, I didn't want to sit around a bar. I didn't even when the weather was bad. I put on a raincoat. Out I'd go. I'd go fishing. I'd be to a different place every week, and I'd get to go fishing. So I found these great fishing spots in every town. Espanola, I found the Whitefish Falls. Sudbury, I'd get up to the north end of the Sudbury to a little lake called Heart Lake up there. I'd catch some beautiful trout. I'd be going to different towns to go to Bracebridge, and I'd find the falls in Bracebridge, and I'd catch some nice pickerel and bass. So I'd bring stuff back to the room. I had 2 electric frying pans, and I'd cook up the fish. You'd tell the boys in the band, go get yourself an order of fries, come on back, supper's on, half the supper's on me. Yeah. And this is where I was doing a show with John Howard and Eric Kidd from Barrie. And John Howard had Gig Magazine. He was the one that gave me the name, the Fishin Musician. Oh, no kidding. And it stuck. Yeah. Because he had a great plate of walleye and his own fries cooked on my hot plate in my room. When I was 9 years old, I picked up a set of drumsticks. My Uncle Angie, I got into some trouble. I won't go into that, but I got into some trouble. My Uncle Angie says, you got to do something. You got to have a craft. You got to have a hobby. You got to have something to do to keep your mind up. And so my Uncle Angie put a set of drumsticks in my hand and introduced me to his drummer, Donnie Jacobs, at the time, who was a very close friend of his. And Donnie Jacobs was a music teacher in North Bay. And he really helped me find this path that I'm on now and stay on it with something in my heart. But the first things that he showed us was on a floor tom. And the floor tom is the biggest, for those that don't know, this is the biggest drum that sits beside the drummer. You have your 2 top toms and the bass drum, but the biggest tom that's beside you. And Mr. Don Jacobs would go on that, and he'd play rhythms like that. And he'd have a whole class full of people, and he'd be on a floor tom. And he'd be playing these kind of rhythms, and he'd have the whole class with drumsticks on the tables in the classroom playing along to that. And we didn't even know that was an African rhythm. Right. But it was. Later I recognized what I had learned first. Now this is where it comes through, right? So when you think of, that's the pattern for Wipeout. Now the pattern for Wipeout has been derived from an African rhythm. See, and it just speeded it up. See, so the Wipeout was derived from an African rhythm. And we had no idea when we were, 11 years old, where this was coming from. But that's only one example. There's probably 20 examples in popular music that I could give you. Many, many songs have that roots of African rhythm. It is full circle, very full circle.
I see Don Jacobs still posting on Facebook.
Yeah, he's still around. He lives in Rockland, Ontario. He's on Facebook. Nicest guy you'd ever want to meet. Still playing drums. Yeah. After all these years, he's still doing it. He plays in a band down in Rockland area, kind of a jazz, big band type thing.
I think he spent some time in Florida too.
Correct, yes. And he's an avid bass fisherman. We have that in common. Yeah. We've been threatening for a few years to get together and go do some bass fishing.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Oh yeah. Donnie Jacobs is one of a kind. What I'm looking at is probably May 24 weekend at the Fork Chip Stand. Yeah. Likely on the Friday night. Yeah. I'll be doing a show there, and it's usually a supper time show, 5 to 7. So, but Sue and Tom would love to see you guys all out at the Fork Chip Stand. Come on out.